Let's have a real chat, man to man. Hey, Jason here. I've been an expat slash nomad for 10 years now. I am on my fourth country, third continent, here in the southern region of Africa in Lusaka, Zambia. Now, one of the things I've started doing is sharing with you what I've learned along this 10-year journey from happiness, health, and wealth perspective. And also, if you're thinking about becoming an expat or already one, why you should be looking into this southern region of Africa and specifically in the country of Zambia for some of the opportunities and just the peace and tranquility that exist here. Now, let's get into today's actual conversation. And I think I'm going to start calling these the Fireside chats. I think that's the playlist I want to do for these because I'll be watching these pop the balloon shows and all these different variants of it. And I try to watch the ones that are supposed to be serious focused because on those, you're really getting an understanding of the psychology of the general society and what's going on. And it also helps you see the programming of what's going on from a man's perspective and a woman's perspective. Now, let me just say this caveat. For my videos, I focus on the male perspective. I'm a little bit more conservative and traditional in some things. And one of the things I believe in is men should be addressing men and let women address women issues. So for me, I'm going to only be speaking about the man perspective in this video. So just understand that. So don't be thinking I'm taking one side or the other side. There's always multiple sides to a story. However, as men, we need to start reeling each other back in. And we need to start getting back to that era where men were making sure men were doing the right thing. And also teaching and passing on the right things to other men. Because I think a lot of Hollywood, celebrity and fame has really tarnished what it means to be a man now. And since I've started doing a lot of psychological study on myself and working on my personal philosophy, you know, it has shown me as a man a lot of my shortcomings in areas where I was set back, and it was because of the way that I was thinking, especially when it came to things that I thought were manly or masculine. I was doing a lot of things incorrectly. And so that's why I wanted to share this information, because watching this Pop the Balloon reunion, and it's one of the popular ones, I think, in the US. I think it's popular. But like for this one, I'm listening to the people and they're breaking so many rules of wanting a relationship. And the problem is how they're personally identifying with themselves. And this is where I'm talking about the identity. If you've seen my other videos, one of the things that I keep saying over and over again, ego is not your enemy. The ego has been misdefined. At the time when the ego was getting the definition, we did not understand what it truly meant. But if you now move on to new science and the new psychological understanding and principles that have been discovered, I guess you could say, the ego is not the enemy. And we need to get this understanding very, very fast, because the longer we keep thinking the ego is the enemy, we're misidentifying ourselves, because we're not focused on the one thing that we truly have the most power of, which is how do we identify? Now, when I say that, most people always think of a monotheistic. Is it monotheistic? Man, I can't even remember the word now. But a mono approach, meaning one. You can only have one identity. I'm a black person. I'm a white person. I'm a man. I'm a woman. The truth is, we are multi-dimensional beings. We live in a multi-dimensional world. We don't live in a 1D world. And so it was interesting because, you know, first I looked up the definition of identity, I'm sorry. And identity, the definition is the fact of being who or what a person or thing is. This is in the Oxford Dictionary. That means nothing. Part two, a close similarity or affinity. Again, it's not saying anything. It's not putting a picture in our head. But then when I went and asked, what is a simple definition of identity? Then it says the distinguishing character or personality of an individual. Now we're getting closer. Because the thing is, we've been taught to identify as a group. We have to start identifying as a solo person, one entity. You can only identify as you. However, you have to understand what that really means as you. And this is where we mess up. Then it says personal identity. I looked up that. I was like, what is personal identity? It says refers to the unique ways. That's a plural. Unique ways that you define yourself. Now, you may be like, Jason, it's still not saying much, but let's go on more. It says one person might choose to emphasize their family, their religion, and interest when describing their identity. A different person might emphasize their race, their neighborhood, and job as important parts of who they are. This is very crucial. Our identity and how we identify ourselves are based off of different parts of our lives. Like me as a Black man, I identified with certain things at a stronger level than maybe a white man. Me as someone born in the United States, I identified on things that was much stronger than things that people may identify here in Africa. Like we have to understand that's what that means. So the way we identify is the ways or the pictures that we have programmed for the different parts of our life that are important to us. And then that's the thing where it's saying about the emphasize. You only emphasize on things that are important to you. So if something is not something you identify as, it's not important to you. And this is where, as a society, we've actually collapsed. We now believe everybody's supposed to love me for who I am. Everybody's supposed to accept me for who I am. There's people in this world who don't even think about certain things because it has no direct touch or knowledge to them. And there's nothing wrong with that. To demonize them for that is wrong. And the one thing, and on top of that is, like, let me just give you a personal example. And this personal example is I'm using current events right now. I'm not even sharing my ideology on anything right now. So it's just current events. Right now, with everything that's kicking off with Iran, the U.S., Palestine, Israel, all of that region, all that chaos is going on right now. And my heart goes out to the people that have to deal with that. I remember what it felt like to be in war, and it wasn't pretty. So all the people that are impacted on that, my prayers and positive thoughts go out to you. I hope the people behind this, they get over their identities of thinking this is the only way to solve conflicts and get peace back in those regions fast. But at the end of the day, I'm not affected by those issues. It hasn't affected my day-to-day life. It hasn't affected my eating habits, my workout habits, the safety of being here in Zambia. None of those things have been impacted. So like my attention isn't going there. Minus the few times someone tell me about something that's going on or what's going on currently in the news, I don't know what's going on. I don't pay attention to it. It's not something that I emphasize in my life. That doesn't make me a bad person. It just means I have more things on my plate that are more important than to keep up with every single current event that's going on in the news in the world, and especially just the negative ones. There's so much more good things going in the world, like the young guy in the United States who's now getting his plastiline patent. He's been doing a great job creating a alternative fuel source out of recycled plastics. Even here in Zambia, I think there's a young kid here, I can't remember where, but that was able to do the same thing, do something with either reuse something with rubber, or it was with plastic. And they was able to make it like an alternative fuel source. Like that's amazing news. Why is that not all over the news 24/7, letting people know there's new technology being invented, new discoveries, maybe ways to bring down fuel costs? Like, just asking. But back on the criteria, let's get back to pop the balloon. But that was just to give you an example of the emphasis and you're only focusing on the things that are important to you. So you have to understand what is important to you in a relationship. Let's talk about relationship, because this is coming from a relationship show. What is actually important to you? And this is why I always say you have to understand your value base. If you don't understand what you value, you don't know what's important to you. And watching just the guys, because remember, I'm just analyzing the guys, they don't know what they value. They're they're letting the bestial side of physical attraction, physical stimulation overdrive their senses of finding companionship in someone that they can love until, the day one of them decide to leave this planet and transition to the next form of life. As someone who's experienced that, that is such a beautiful relationship, man. You just don't know. Uh, if you're married and you love your wife and love your husband, leave it down in the comments. Let people see. Like, people don't, a lot of people, what I'm learning is we didn't have access to married people, like truly happy married people. Either a lot of people came from single family home, or let me say, not say a lot, a large number came from single family homes or homes that was semi dysfunctional or broken. Like, that's the thesis that I'm coming up with based off the collective of what I've seen around the world from personal stories and people's personal experience. A lot of us have a common theme of trauma growing up in the family. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. But it has given us a perverted image of a relationship or a perverted expectation, which now has given us a false identity around the emphasis of a relationship. And that's why I'm saying the ways we identify with things are in pictures. Remember, we think in pictures. You have to understand that. The moment you can truly grasp when you're in the middle of a thought and you have that deja vu moment, that aha, that flashback, or you're daydreaming, like whatever words you want to use for it, but it's a picture you're seeing inside your head. You're inside yourself seeing that picture being projected. Once you understand that, you'll now start understanding the things that you identify with. So even with me, I'm still adjusting things how I identify and the way I identify with them. Because the truth be, you don't want to be too far on the left or too far on the right. You kind of want to be in the middle somewhere, because the middle ground is where it gives you room to grow. And what I mean by growing, like once you start realizing, I'm not, let's just, for example, I'm not all good, I'm not all bad. I'm just the in between. Because a lot of us try to be perfect, and you can't hold an image of perfection, because you're going to start lying. Whenever you start lying, people are going to know, because you may not remember the lie, but they remember what you said because they're holding that as truth. So that's where a lot of people don't understand. They're trying to hold on to perfection and they're coming off as a liar. And that's where people start disliking people. And so in that middle ground where you understand, like, look, I'm not all great, I'm not all bad, but shit, I can grow. This is where you find those levels to grow to the next entity of who you can become, or be a better version of yourself. And when you start understanding those pictures, you can start changing those pictures in your head. This is how we change our mind. You change your mind by changing the pictures of your head, which then changes the actions of your body. You physically start acting like a different person. The image of drinking as a person that go out and drink in club was no longer in my mind. And it was a person of, I want to be home on the weekends. I like to be at home at night. Whoever my special someone is, I'd rather be in the house with them at night than being out drunk or out clubbing and, meeting up with random women. My actions started changing also. I started losing the taste, that flavor, that desire to have alcohol and to consume it. I don't even have a desire to be around it. Right now, I've had a bottle of Tennessee Jack Daniel's honey whiskey it's on my counter, actually. I've had it for over a year in there. And the only reason I got it because last winter I was getting a lot of sniffles. So I started making some hot toddies like my grandmother taught me. And that's the only reason I used it. So it was like little bitty drops of whiskey heated up in some hot water with some lemon and some mint. That's it. And the bottle is still sitting in there. Now I know most people will be like, man, I would have drunk that up by now. Or, yo, you couldn't have left that out of my house. And funny thing is, probably gonna be there 3 or 4 more years later, unless I give it to somebody, because they don't sell the little bottles. I had to get the big one here. But like, do you see how? But let me know in the comments. Do that make sense to you about how that is how you change your mind? Is changing the picture of who you are around a specific part of your life that is important to you? Because at that time, being married was important to me. Like, I didn't want to lose my relationship over drinking or because I'm out being toxic in the clubs, partying all hours of the night. Like, that wasn't important to me. My importance was being with my wife at the time, Cece. And it's just transitioned to now to where being with myself, just being safe, not having to worry about drunk drivers, not having to worry about people shooting up a club or something, or, find out a girl's out cheating and you didn't know, her boyfriend's confronting you. Like, I don't like drama in my life. And so because I don't want any of that nonsense in my life, that part of that image has still stuck on till today. Just even the same way how I changed my mind about eating and I went plant-based the first time. Then I transitioned to vegan after I went through a major depression. Now I'm slowly transitioning back to plant-based. I'm changing that image to a better version of me. And so that's how that works. Like, we have to understand the identity, the way we personally identify around important things, aspects of our life, is how we can actually achieve the things that we want. So like for these three guys, like, they really need to do some work on what type of man do they want to be in a relationship. And one of the best ways to figure that out is, how do you want your partner, your wife, your girlfriend, whatever how that relationship title you're going to give it, how do you want them to speak to you every day? How do you want them to what type of opinion do you want them to have about you? Like, what is it that you're doing that they're so happy with you that they're doing things to make you smile too? Like, start asking those questions. And that's where you're going to find the things that you value. Value based is the only way to find long-term relationships. You're not going to find a long-term relationship in just physical connection. It doesn't work. When people be like, oh, opposites attract. No, opposites don't attract. Values attract. If you not talking to someone with the values of you, it don't matter how beautiful they are, how much they're your type, how much you're going to love and dote on them. It doesn't matter. They're not going to fulfill your dreams and wishes. They're not going to be the person that completely makes you happy. You're going to be miserable. I think most people, when they hear me saying this, they probably think of a person like Will Smith. Like, I'm not being funny here. Like, and it's not to throw shade on him, but like, if he probably would have understood this a long time ago, he might have avoided a lot of the pain that he went through recently in his life. And it sucks, man. Like, to physically lose someone that I love and knowing I can't see her again, it hurts. But to lose someone like that, and you probably see them every single day. I don't know how he does it. Like, that's pretty freaking harsh. Look, it's a lot out here. And I truly believe a lot of guys really want healthy, happy relationships, but we're just listening to the wrong nonsense. It don't matter if it's red pill, blue pill, black pill, green pill. Who cares what pill it is? It's like, at the end of the day, it's not a pill that's going to help you solve your problem. It is going to be you focusing on how you identify with yourself as the man in a relationship. What are the values that you actually care about? What do you value? And I will challenge you right now. Like, if you're a guy, in the comments, what do you value? What's one thing that you value about a relationship? Like, really think about it. What do you value about a relationship? For me, and I'm going to start it off for you. For me, I value my partner knowing and feeling secure, knowing that I'm going to be that protective provider. Like, knowing that they can come to me and not afraid like the world's going to collapse. Those are things that I value. What about you? And so leave that down below. And just remember this: success is simple once you know how.